everyone, it's Rexluna here, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about how I made my patterns for my Lara Croft holsters. Now this will work for probably any other type of holster or weird belt situation, but the patterns that I'm going to be talking about and showing you are going to be from the Lara Croft Classic version, as in like the first few games on PlayStation, not the rebooted anniversary version, and the version from Underworld. So there's a couple differences between them and I'll explain those to you as we go. The first thing we should talk about are the things you're going to need. Now since you're making the patterns, you don't really need much and it's really cheap, so if you don't have the money for your stuff right now, you can totally just spend a really long time working on your patterns and planning everything out. That's what I do sometimes when I'm kind of low on money, like during the holidays where all the money gets spent on other people. Anyway, so you're going to want some reference photos. Try to get as many as possible as usual. In my case, my reference photos didn't match up, so I had like the art version of her where she's got the really high neckline and these stupid holsters that don't make any sense. They wouldn't work in real life. They're just like bags basically on her hips. There's no way to pull the gun out. Then there's ones from like the screenshots in game that are so pixely because it's such an old game that it's so hard to tell what you're looking at. I also went off of some other cosplayers just to kind of see what looked okay, and then there is a website that shows all the different belts from all the different games and certain variations where in the game she has a different outfit and her belt's different. It explains all of that. There's some tutorials as well. Theirs are a little more in-depth and detail-oriented than mine are, but I will put the link below. I believe the website is laracroftcosplay.com, but I will link to that specific belt section. It was a little bit helpful for me, but I just didn't follow their particular way of doing it. Yeah, so reference photos. You're going to want measuring tape so you can measure yourself, some type of marking device, pen, pencil, both, scissors, and whatever you're going to put your pattern on. I personally like to use poster board for basically anything because it's strong, it's not going to rip apart when you try taking it in and out of where it's being stored. And in this case, since I'm working with vinyl/leather, it's a little more stiff. It's obviously quite a bit more stiff than the actual fabric will be, but it gives you a little bit of an idea how it's going to look. You can tape it together and put it on and it's pretty close to how it's going to turn out. So I've mentioned before in one of my like Cosplay 101 videos that I like to use this sketchbook for all my costume stuff, and I said, you know, I just started using it, didn't know how good it was. It's been super helpful, so I definitely recommend doing something like this. So I have my two reference photos that actually give a decent idea of all the different parts of the costume and what the holsters look like. So obviously there's going to be some alterations because seriously, who wears belts that thick? No. But it gives me an idea. So I do have the reference photos, but I still like to sketch everything out, as I believe I mentioned before. So what I like to do is just sketch out whatever the piece is. So when I work on armor, I'll draw like one pauldron, I'll draw one gauntlet, and I can just really look at it and see all the details and know how it's supposed to go together. So in this case, I just drew out the whole holster, which is simple, but it just really helps my mind kind of zero in on what I'm working on. I also put in these little lines and little arrows and all sorts of crap, marking what the measurements are for each part. So I measured all the way around my hips, the length that it needs to be from the top of the belt all the way down to where the thigh piece is going to be, and the width around at my thighs. Now when it comes to these little side parts here that kind of swoop down, I kind of just eyeballed that a little bit. I attached the front of the measuring tape, like if this was center front, and then I looped it around to center back of myself and just kind of gauged about how that would look, and then I was like, okay, that measurement works for me. So not the most professional way to do it, but that's just kind of how I like to roll. Anyway, so make sure you write all of your information down, because what I like to do is basically just start with lines. I make markings on how wide something's going to be and how long it's going to be, and then from there I add any of the details that are needed. So in this case, since you're making belts that go around your body's not flat. So you need to keep in mind that there are curves that your belts are going to need to go around. If any of you have ever worn like a leather belt for a long time, you might notice that the back starts to kind of get this little slight curve to it. And that's what you need to emulate when you're making your belt. Really, I don't know. There's probably a formula, some pattern where you do it every time, but I don't know what that is. I just kind of like to freehand it. I just draw out a few different shapes until I get one that seems to fit a little bit better. and then I just go with that. If you do have a belt that you've worn for a while that has that curve, just totally trace that out. I did that when I was working on a belt for something else, but that belt is gone now, so I can't do it this time. So I have the pattern pieces here. So I don't have the belt part just because I didn't have long enough poster at the time, but I'm going to do that obviously before I make it. So these are my thigh straps that go around my leg. I have them folded just so they'd fit. And I've got the hip piece, which I realized later it has to have a slight curve so that it goes straight into the buckle instead of at a diagonal, but that's easy to fix. The way you do fix that, if you look close on this piece, I just took some scraps and I taped them along here to add, I believe that's about 1/2 inch to this particular piece. So it doesn't need to look pretty. If you want to, you can trace it out again, but I'm just trying to save materials and I don't really care. So this is what I did for the actual holster pocket. That's what I'm going to call it because I don't know what it is called. And I actually just traced the gun. It's super ghetto, but worked for me. I did measure the gun initially, but I didn't end up using those measurements. I just set the gun down and traced it, and this is the shape I ended up with. Now I might have to change it. I think the top goes up a little too high, but it really depends on how it happens to look when I put it all together. It's very, very easy to change, but I have 2 of these, and they're going to be sewn together completely this way, and then from here to a little bit around this curve so that the handle can stick out and I can reach my hand in and pull it out for photo shoots. Now my assumption is that it's just going to be these 2 pieces, but in the off chance that the vinyl is a little less forgiving than this poster, you can easily just break it apart, add like a 1/2 inch straight piece of fabric down the center and sew it to the sides, and then you have like a little pocket thing. So as you can tell, I like to work with the idea that I can fix certain things later instead of perfecting everything as I start, which I know is like the stupidest way to make things, but I just kind of like doing it that way. I don't have a lot of patience when it comes to stuff like this, and I just kind of like seeing how it's going to look. I don't want to spend 2 days perfecting a pattern and then finally after this, like on the 3rd day, I can see how it looks. Like I want to see it earlier than that. So sorry that it's a little bit random and weird. Anyway, so patterns are done. That's all you really need to do for that. One thing to keep in mind, now these particular patterns, I did not leave seam allowance in at all because I am eventually going to remake them out of leather once I get the pattern completely how I like it, and once I've been able to test the pattern out. I'm making it out of vinyl first, so I have a couple of events I can wear it to see how it looks in pictures and how it feels, and then if I like it, cool, I'll make it again in leather. If not, I'll make some alterations and then make it in leather. So with leather, if you get it really thick, all you need to do is kind of shave off the ends and, you know, give it the nice rounded look and finish it off. But that's it. You don't need to fold any edges down. But what I'm going to do is actually take 2 layers and fold the edges in so that you get a nice, closed, neat looking edge, and you'll see when I get to that point. So if you are going to do something like that, keep in mind your seam allowance. So I'm just going to measure out however much allowance that I'm going to need, probably 1/2 inch or so, and then just kind of mark that around the pattern instead of making a whole different set, because I don't want to do that. So when it comes to the Underworld version, it's a little different. It's obviously a little more detailed as any of the older or newer holsters are. So I did the same thing, sketched it out, marked all the sections. I even drew the side of the holster like a front view, so if you were looking at me from the side, what the actual holster pocket section would look like. And here's my reference photos, which is Lara's butt. That's just, I needed to see that side. So I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but instead of just being like a leather belt, it's a leather belt that has some of that like backpack cord stuff. I don't remember what you call it, but you know, the cording that they use on a backpack, that's like the woven plasticky stuff. That's what it looks like to me. So there's leather and there's that, and then there's different belts, and it's all attached a little different. It's got more details. So I drew those details on here. So there's either a big snap or a button where it connects up here, and this is the parachute or backpack cord. This part's the leather, all that stuff. So I actually kept that in mind when I was doing my measurements and when I was drawing it out. So I'm not sure how well that shows here. It's all really just a bunch of notes. But I wrote down that the inner part was a certain measurement and the outer part was a different measurement. So then, when I made my patterns, I made them in 2 pieces. And I also made them different widths. So this is the outer thigh piece. It's going to go around like this. And this is the inner thigh piece where I had to add some space. It's going to attach like this. And then it'll clip at one of these sections or possibly in the center. I haven't decided yet. Now, since the belt's a little more detailed, I also was using a couple of other pictures on my phone that aren't on this page, but I didn't want to print like all 5 of them out. It's actually a couple of layers, so there's the main belt, which is this wide piece here. There's the center piece, which is right here, and the backpack cording, whatever you want to call it. And then however it connects here, which I'm going to use buttons, and I'll show you those in a second. So I actually just taped it all together. If you'll note, this is completely straight, which obviously is not going to work, but I really just wanted the basic pattern idea down, and then I can add the curve once I figure out what that curve needs to be. Alright, so once you get your pattern done, you're going to need your materials to actually start working on your costume. So I haven't started yet. I actually just bought my materials yesterday, but I thought I'd show you guys what I am using. So like I said, I'm starting with vinyl until I kind of get a feel for how it works, and then I'm going to make it out of real leather, which is going to be a whole other video once that happens. So this is the stuff I got. I don't know how well it shows. Oh, there we go. Kind of see. It's pretty solid, flat texture, not a lot of stuff to it. And the back is just this plastic stuff, which means it won't fray. So technically I could leave it in one layer if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I want to have the 2. So, yeah, I got this stuff at Joann Fabrics, and it is $17.99 a yard, which is expensive, but it is, I believe, 60 inches wide, 64, 62, I don't remember. So you can get a lot out of just a little bit of fabric. So I actually only need half a yard, which my book is right here. I actually wrote down, it's called Marine Vinyl. I didn't write down, oh, here we go, Marine Vinyl. And I wrote down how much it cost, how many yards I need, and all of my notions on the side, so I can keep track of anything that I need if I have to go get more of it, or one of them broke, or just for peace of mind, so if I ever come back to this and I don't have the old version, how did I do it? That's how I did it. So, super awesome to have something like this. But yeah, so use a coupon for this stuff. It's expensive, but it's pretty nice. I used this stuff for my Steam Dress Alice apron, and it turned out pretty well. Now, nylon strapping is what I was trying to say. The backpack strap cord, whatever. So I actually bought this for a few dollars, and it is 60 inches, which is a little shy of 2 yards. So that's what's going to be used for the wetsuit version's straps on the front part and around the thigh. I only have one of these so far, but I'm going to need a second one. This is actually what I'm going to use to close the belt in the front. Now you'll note that she actually has a gold belt buckle. I'm going to make a fake gold belt buckle that's going to go over the top, so I don't have to deal with all that belt buckle crap, which I hate dealing with, and just use this underneath. I'll be using the same one for the wetsuit version, probably a smaller one though. I got this at Hobby Lobby, and I don't want to get into how I feel about them because I know it's really controversial right now, but they are the only people in my area that sell these for a good price, and you can get the smaller ones in like bulk kind of. You can get like 10 or 12 in a bag instead of buying 1 or 2 at a time. So that's kind of cool, but also not. So for the button part that I was showing you on the wetsuit version, I just got straight up like plain black buttons, the kind that you sew in the back. And I don't have the tool on me, I should have grabbed it, but there's actually, I believe it's called like a shank cutter or something. It's usually in the button section. It's actually used to cut this part of the button off. So then you end up with a flat surface. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut it off, and I'm going to use either like an epoxy or E6000 or a vinyl glue, something that'll make it stick, and then just stick it to the top of my belts so that it doesn't flop around like buttons like this tend to do. And then it has the look of there being something holding them together. Now, when I do it with leather, it'll probably be different. There might actually be a piece I can shove through the leather to connect it, but for my vinyl version, this is what I'm doing. These are shiny, so I'll probably paint over them with a matte paint, try and get the shine to go away, but we'll see. I might not have time. So, yeah, that's pretty much all the supplies that you need. You got your pattern, you got your stuff ready to go, and when we talk next time, I'll show you how to start making it. So I hope this was helpful, and I hope the series becomes helpful, and I'm really excited to cosplay Lara Croft, so I'll definitely be talking to you guys about that when it's done. So look out for that. Thank you for watching. Sorry I've been away forever, but thank you all for staying with me anyway. Bye!